What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tru Element 78 in the building with.
Your one and only reigning and defending Mondo Lucha Hall of Famer, the X-Man Xavier Mustafa.
And I am the natural Chris Black.
And today is a special edition of Saturday Night Slamcasters where we are going to be covering the Undertaker Last Ride documentary that is on the WWE Network. It dropped a couple of months ago. It's a 5-part series, and today we're covering episode 1, which is entitled The Greatest Fear. This documentary covers The Undertaker. This episode talks about his career as a whole for the most part, but the cameras followed him around from 2017 through 2020, the year that we're currently in. So, like I said, we're just going to roll with the punches. This is episode 1. We hope that you guys enjoyed our review of Viceland's Dark Side of the Ring. If this is your first time checking us out, be sure to go back and check out our previous content here on YouTube. And you can also find us wherever you get your podcast from. That is completely separate content. And without any further ado, let's jump right into the Undertaker The Last Ride documentary. Overall thoughts on this first episode, or actually, you know what? Not even overall thoughts on the first episode. Thoughts on the Undertaker in general as a character and what he's meant to you in your wrestling career, fellas.
Well, um, I'd have to say it's probably not even probably the Undertaker is the best gimmick in my opinion ever. It's been long lasting. He's been able to evolve his character and change it up every now and then so it doesn't get stale. Um, no matter what, whenever you hear that gong, you know something special is going to happen. Unless you're in Saudi Arabia, but other than that, I've always enjoyed Undertaker matches. Um, well, we'll get into it. But the later matches, 2017, 18, 19, those are some yet to be desired. But overall, um, really no complaints about him.
I think something special did happen in Saudi Arabia, but yeah, we'll talk about that later. But it's weird. The Undertaker to me, like he's been in wrestling since I've started watching wrestling. So he's kind of one of those I guess you could say people that I really, really looked up to, especially like as a kid. I'm like, oh my god, this guy is like has powers. I'm a little kid. Okay, keep in mind. I'm like, oh, this guy has powers. Can make lightning come out and stuff like that. Like I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and cool gimmick. And now as a much older man, I can respect everything he's done in the ring and everything that he's done, and appreciate his career for what it's been and what it's going to be.
Yeah, for me growing up, like you just said, he pretty much, when he popped on the scene, I was 3 years old, but I was watching wrestling, sitting on my grandpa's lap, and he scared the hell out of me at that time because I didn't know what the hell that was. Um, Seeing him go up against Hulk Hogan, my hero, and everything like that back then was a completely different experience and really gave me something to get invested in as a kid. Then getting back into wrestling in the 1998, 1999 time frame, and Undertaker's doing his corporate ministry or just the ministry, and it became the corporate ministry and everything like that. It was like that was amazing. Just seeing him reinvent his character, like he came in as a zombie, undead zombie, evolved into this demonic figurehead, moved into the biker gimmick. Then you had Big Evil with him beating up Ric Flair's son in the shower and whispering sweet nothings into his ear. And then all the way back into the Dead Man. And now, if the AJ Styles Undertaker WrestleMania match is anything, a mashup of all the faces of the Undertaker, but still being relevant even at his accelerated age now. I think this documentary started off well with showing why the Undertaker is important to the WWE and what he's meant to them over the past 30 years of his career there. Like he started in WCW as Mean Mark Calloway with Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman being his manager, and then just
Yeah, we
everything
don't talk.
coming,
We don't talk about that here.
and then and Big Red and everything, and going full circle and the streak being ended by Brock Lesnar, with Paulie Dangerously being Brock Lesnar's manager. It's just kind of crazy how you think the longevity that people have within wrestling. Like, you see the Rock and Roll Express still out there wrestling, and they were wrestling before Undertaker was. But just thinking about everything that Undertaker has done, from the Buried Alive matches, the Inferno matches, the Hell in a Cell matches, the cage matches, like they said in here, he's done it all.
Yeah, he pretty much damn near every gimmick match is probably tied to Undertaker in some way or another.
Yeah, first blood.
You know how you know the Undertaker is something special? Can you tell me one bad thing somebody told you about the Undertaker? Or any one thing you've heard anybody say on TV about the Undertaker? Like the guy, like, I remember back in my Tennessee days. Well, I made that sound like that was a long, long time ago. Kind of was. But anyway, back in my Tennessee days, I was around a gentleman by the name of Dutch Mantel. May have heard of him. Not that I'm name dropping or anything. But he was telling me and my friend, other friend down there named JP, he would tell us stories about when he was traveling. I forgot who he said he traveled with, but he also traveled with The Undertaker. The Undertaker was that young guy at that point. It's hard to imagine at one point he was green in his business. And it was kind of tell a story. And even then, like, he couldn't say a bad thing about him. He was respectful. He was on time. He did the driving. He listened. So I just want to point that out about the Undertaker. He's respected in the locker room. I know we're going to talk about that later. Like, that's the man.
Right.
Piggybacking off of what you just said, like, you hear, not only do you not hear anything bad about the Undertaker, like, he's not tied to any type of scandals. There's never been any drug scandals, addiction problems.
Even when you look at
his wife, none of that stuff.
Yeah, even when you look at the Vader situation on the talk show, and Undertaker just sat there while he smacked the reporter around. He didn't even get in trouble for that, because he just sat there watching this shit happen.
You're like, I'm a gimmick.
Right. Blame it on the gimmick.
So, like I said, the beginning of the documentary basically covers everything that we just spoke about as far as the Undertaker's career as a whole. And then you fast forward to current times, and Undertaker's talking about all of the injuries. Like we just said, he's been through literal hell in the WWF as far as matches goes and all these different gimmicks. And they're saying how tough he is, and he's one of the most dependable guys. But to be one of the most dependable guys in wrestling, as you guys could probably attest to, means dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of injuries, and not necessarily taking care of those injuries as they come along.
Let me tell you something. So back in 2010, when I did my deal with getting my head shaved, I saw the Undertaker that night. I did not approach him or talk to him. I just didn't kind of want to bother him. Like I said, it was 2010, and back then he was walking around the back. He walked around like his back was broken, kind of hunched over and kind of just shuffling along. I'm just like, damn, he looks bad. But then as soon as his music hit, watched on the monitor, straightened up, walking just like the Undertaker. I'm like, damn, he switches up quick. But yeah, you can tell the amount of pain that he's in just by looking at him.
And so they start talking about all the different injuries that he suffered, and how over the past several years he's become a one match a year guy. And one of the things Undertaker brings up in here is that once somebody called attention to that he was undefeated at WrestleMania, that kind of opened the doorways for him to only have to wrestle one time a year, because it gave him something to defend. Because he admitted it. He said, I can't do a full schedule. There, I said it. You heard me say it. Like, which is something that all of us have known, and it's very obvious. Like you said, you saw him backstage in 2010 walking around hunched over with a limp. We've been watching him come down to the ring with the same limp, with the belly, with the wig, with all different types of stuff going on with the Undertaker. But one thing that him and Triple H emphasized in here, I wish they had a talk to Shawn Michaels about what it was like to really come back in Saudi Arabia after being gone for so many years, or hell, I hope we can hear from Edge sooner rather than later about what it was like to come back after 9 years out of the ring. But you guys, I'm gonna ask you guys, because they, like I said, what they were emphasizing was that wrestling once a year is like one of the hardest things to do, because when it comes to wrestling, it's about your timing, it's about your cardio, and it's your gimmick. And to have all three of those things on point, wrestling only once a year, and Stone Cold even said, he was like, when you're doing it every night, he's like, it's an every night thing. You're building up calluses, you're hardened for this, your body becomes used to it. But when you got to pull yourself out of doing nothing to training again, to get back in shape, and then get in the ring and start taking those bumps and those falls and everything like that, it's one of the hardest things possibly to do. And I know we just came out of a pandemic, and you guys have gotten, well, at least Chris Black has gotten back into the ring. But what is that like, being out of the ring for a while? And well, Xavier Mustafa could probably attest to it too, because he fought for the Legacy Pro Championship a few months back against
Nell Dillinger.
Yeah, Nell Dillinger.
At least for me, I'm not gonna lie, it was scary. I was like, man, what if I go in there and I just forgot all my training? But once I got in, it was kind of like riding a bike a little bit. That next day though, whew, that next week, man, that to say I hurt was an understatement. But you know, I would just have problems with, you know, just being a little bit sore after a match for a couple of days, but I don't want to get out of bed for the first like 2-3 days after that match. Yep, cardio was bad. Ring positioning, still so good for me. I have no problem with that. But it is an adjustment. There is value of being in the ring more often than not.
And one thing for you, I guess, would be is that you're a bigger guy, and at least in that match, you were going up against a smaller guy, so you're not bumping around like a Chris Black would for Devin August, you know.
Anyway, well, just kind of piggybacking off of Mustafa just said. Mentally, you're always ready to get back in the ring. As far as, you know, timing, ring positioning, all that kind of stuff, the psychology behind it. But sometimes the body is a lot harder to fine tune to come back, because it's usually that first bump that, you know, kind of jars your body back. Because if you're bumping on a consistent basis, yeah, you know, you bump, you get right back up like it's nothing. But if there is a long break before you've been in the ring, again, that first bump sometimes can kind of jar your body. You're just like, oh, okay. But then you kind of go into like autopilot. It's just like, okay, let's do this. But yeah, your body gets sore. Kind of quite the opposite effect happens too. Like when I had my time off from, you know, the injury and the COVID, it seems like my body hurt more that I was outside the ring. I don't know if it was trying to heal itself or whatever from all the just years of bumping, but you know, my neck was stiffer, my back was stiffer. You know, I had to do a little more stretching. Like Mustafa said, your cardio is always going to be an issue, because there is a big difference between running 10 miles a day, you know, being on a treadmill, riding your bike. There's a difference between doing that and bumping, getting up, moving around, you know, moving your whole body. Again, taking them bumps, jarring your body, getting back. I mean, it's nothing can prepare you to get in ring shape, but get in the ring. So I feel for the Undertaker doing that once a year. I'm pretty sure he probably, I don't know, maybe he bumps around off season just to be doing it, just to get his body in shape. But I don't think so, because if you're not going to perform, I don't see people just bumping just for the hell of it. But
And
once a year, I can only imagine what that kind of does to your body.
Yeah, that was one of the things I've addressed with Xavier Mustafa when he asked me about me training to get in the ring. And I'm like, that takes a little bit of flexibility, and that might be where your body starts stiffening up, because it's not having to move into those positions and have those muscles work the way that they were working before. And now they've become accustomed to sitting in a chair or whatever, laying on your back. Well, you're always laying on your back when you're in the ring, Chris Black, but it's just not.
Submission specialist. I can fight on my back.
But that's also one of the things that Undertaker also brings up, is that with him wrestling once a year, he had gotten in the habit of he goes into Mania with an injury, and then he has his match. Then he comes out of Mania and he has surgery for that injury, and then after that he's doing rehab, and then by the time he's done with rehab, it's time to start training again to go back to Mania, and then the cycle continues. That match at Mania, surgery, rehab, training, match at Mania, and so like even his wife Michelle McCool was bringing up how many surgeries, the uncalculable number of surgeries the Undertaker has had that we don't even know about.
Right. Can you imagine his list of injuries? Like it's got to be just a laundry list of broken fingers, broken ankles, torn this, pulled that.
Yeah, I remember
both hips hurt all the time.
I remember growing up and thinking, I'm like, man, why does the Undertaker always have the belt? Because he's always there. Like, he doesn't ever get injured. Like, but then watching stuff now, and you're like, oh, he was injured. He's just a tough ass son of a bitch.
Like, like I didn't know he had a broken foot when he wrestled Mankind in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like,
I was like, oh, and you know what? And it's funny because when they showed the scene of him dropping down from the cage and then limping, I remember that from watching the match originally. Never dawned on me. I thought it was just from him jumping off the cage. Like if you jump off something real high and like when you first hit, you had that little I don't even know what to call it, but you get jarred a little bit. I just chucked it up to that.
That's it.
And watching it, I was like, oh man, he was hurt.
Yeah, the moment that I knew Undertaker was a tough son of a bitch was in that Hell in a Cell, I think it was at Armageddon Hell in a Cell, and he got caught on fire by his pyro, had second-degree burns, had to go stand in a pod because it's an elimination chamber for like 10 or 15 minutes, pouring water on himself. Then he gets in the ring and he wrestles another 30 minutes with second-degree burns.
Jesus Christ.
I've had second-degree burns. So that doesn't feel good. And especially if you got to go bump on that.
Undertaker just said one thing to Vince when he came through the camera. He's just like, I don't care who it is, he's fired. Or I don't want to see him anymore. The person responsible for the pyro.
And like I said, another one of the things he brought up was the gimmick and like being methodical and moving slow, and then having that burst that comes out of nowhere as a big man when he came into the industry, and how he kind of revolutionized kind of that the big man that can move in the ring and doing things that people had never seen, which made the Undertaker stand out as being something special. When he mentioned that, I kind of thought of something, and I'll probably get some backlash and pushback, but you guys tell me, like, it's a little bit different, but Orange Cassidy's kind of a take on that, I would think. Moving.
Definitely.
I was just gonna say, like, moving around, kind of lackadaisical, but then being able to just go, being able to actually move and pull shit off in the ring. But it's just updated for these things. He's not a zombie. He's a stoner or a hippie or whatever you want to call him. He doesn't care until he cares.
I mean, that's definitely has to do with like timing and pacing of the match. I mean, when you think about it, the match is supposed to, kind of escalate slowly by slowly, and it's like if the Undertaker starts out real slow and methodical, or Orange Cassidy starts, real slow and lackadaisical, and suddenly when it's time to go, he goes and he turns that that switch on. Yeah, I mean, Armani, he always talks about explosiveness, how important explosiveness is. And yeah, Orange Cassidy's got it. Undertaker's got it. So,
and I don't want to stay on Orange Cassidy, but I'll say this. I just wanted to say this, that I think that's why he kind of stands out in AEW as well, because one of the things, like, you hear like Jim Cornette and a lot of old school guys, all they do is a bunch of moves and it's too damn fast to keep up, to know what's going on with anything or whatever. Call having your hands in your pockets for the beginning of your offense bullshit if you want to, but it's a slower pace, and like you said, the match crescendos and the pace ramps up. I know Xavier and Mustafa over there like, man, this bullshit. Ain't got nothing to say.
No, I've heard the crowd when they see Mustafa do things that a larger guy isn't supposed to do. Like, Mustafa's got the explosiveness also. Like, I've seen him do kip ups. He does the moonsault off the top rope. You don't see that from big guys, and to see that and to see him move as quick as a cat, those are the special things in wrestling that you look for.
But you can't do it all the time, because then you end up being like, Well, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus on NXT, but you get somebody like that and you just see it all the time. It's not special. That's one of the things that made Undertaker special. Is that gimmick was special.
We'll call him Leith Key.
Well, another one of the things when Undertaker kind of started to realize that it might be time to hang up the boots, he said it was right after the matches with Shawn at WrestleMania 25 and 26 that he hurt more than usual after those matches. But also, you go back, those are considered two of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history, and they worked their asses off. Even though WrestleMania 26 was basically, let's redo WrestleMania 25 and all of our spots, but let's make sure we nail them this time. They were pretty much the exact same matches, but yeah, they worked their asses off, and that's why they have that accolade as having two of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. And I think I would actually put their match definitely in the top 5 and possibly in the top 3. Their two matches.
It's funny because it's like, yeah, after that, especially after that second Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania, he could have hung up the boots and went out on top. But then if he would have done that, then you don't get to see him and Punk. I'm not going to throw away all of his matches afterwards because some of them were still very good. I mean, it is The Undertaker after all. There's that mystique. But I think I would have been satisfied if he would have hung up the boots after the WrestleMania with Shawn, the second one.
Yeah. So he brought up WrestleMania 27, which was against Triple H, and he said that was when he got carted out. And then you get to WrestleMania 30 with the streak being broken with Brock Lesnar, where he was concussed. He doesn't know where he got concussed. A lot of people think it's when he got tackled on the outside of the ring and his head bounced off of the mats on the floor. He says he has no recollection of WrestleMania 30. His last memory is from 3:30 in the afternoon, and he has no idea how he finished that match. And we've talked about it on the podcast before that as a wrestler, especially somebody that's been doing it as long as Undertaker, your body just goes on autopilot mode.
Yep, muscle memory.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I had my injury in February, when the guy landed on my head, and I was extremely just disoriented. I don't remember the rest of that match. I know I finished it, but I don't remember much. So yeah, I mean, your body does kind of go into autopilot.
Which is kind of interesting. Just like I studied psychology and everything like that, you would think that once you've been injured, your body. Well, I guess that would be the body's defense is to just rely on your training. So yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Rely on your training.
What shocked me the most about this well, one of the things that shocked me this episode was they talked to the trainer after he came back after WrestleMania, and he was like, he took one look at him and he gave him that glazed over look and a smile like, hey. And he was like, oh, Lord. Like, he knew he was fucked up.
And then they talk about the what was always rumored, that Vince McMahon went to the hospital with him, and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, all of them, followed Undertaker's ambulance to the hospital during WrestleMania. And they said Undertaker tried to break the seriousness of the situation by cracking a joke like, hey, guys. Well, they said Mark was yelling at Vince McMahon when he at the ambulance saying, don't you got a show to run that's going on or whatever? And then once they got up to the room, he's like, come on, guys, you guys can leave. I'm not dead or whatever. And that got to chuckle a lot of people because they could laugh now. But
like Michelle said, he couldn't even remember his name.
Yeah, she said the nurses would ask him what his name was, and he would cheat and ask her, hey, babe, what's my name? So he was real fucked up.
Here's another reason why Undertaker is a respected person in this business. Is one, we talk about like you just said, Vince McMahon leaving WrestleMania to make sure he's okay, and two, Vince McMahon, you can probably count on one, maybe two hands how many interviews he does for documentaries, and this is one of them. Now, granted, he didn't talk a whole lot, but it was good to actually see him on TV.
He don't look so good. Like, he looked like he hasn't slept in a month.
You probably don't. Have you heard Vince McMahon's schedules?
Yeah, they said
when
he doesn't
talk
sleep.
About him?
They said he gets like 4 hours of sleep.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so yeah, to see Vince McMahon on here is like you get taken back because he hasn't appeared in a lot of WWF documentaries, especially over probably the past 20 years. He hasn't,
But, I mean, it could be argued
and not in character.
well,
Just
it could also be argued it's the same. He doesn't appear on them. The same reason why he doesn't want to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. He doesn't want the spotlight on him.
yeah, and Undertaker's alluded to he knows who he wants to induct him into the Hall of Fame, but he says he's not gonna name it because he doesn't want them to back out of it. Which that kind of leads me to it being Vince McMahon.
Yep. Vince will be like, God damn it.
But all Undertaker got to do is be like, well, Vince, if you're not gonna induct me, I'm not gonna retire, and I can take my talents to AEW. You're like, God damn it, you got my balls to the fire.
No, I don't know. That's a little over the top. I don't know about that.
He could pull it. but then, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, and then he talks about how after WrestleMania 30 and that concussion, he said that one concussion in that one match shook his confidence, and that at the following year's WrestleMania, I believe it was against Bray Wyatt, he said that Triple H had to come and have a pep talk with him, basically just tell him, remind him who the fuck you are. You're the Undertaker.
Oh my God. You know something like that has to be a sight. Imagine Triple H feeling like I have to go give Undertaker a pep talk. Like it's the Undertaker. You don't think he needs pep talks. You don't think he has moments of, insecurity or whatever, but he did say that even to this day, he still has butterflies. He's got that, the butterflies in his stomach before he performs. And there's an old adage that says that the day you don't have them butterflies, it's time for you to hang up the boots.
You got to give Triple H some credit, too, because that's not the first person he had to have that conversation with. I remember he had that same conversation with Ric Flair. I don't know which time he came back to the WWE, but it was one of the times he came back to WWE. Yeah. And that's pretty awesome that he can detect that.
Yeah,
we talked exactly what to say to get you to pop up out of it.
Yeah, we talked about that in our Evolution review. That was when he brought him into Evolution.
Okay, so I'm gonna just take like a couple of seconds just to put Triple H over. I'm getting so sick and tired of people downing dude. When Triple H, honestly, okay, so he buried some people back in the day when he was a performer. That man knows this fucking business. And I can't think of anything bad to say about the guy because every time you've seen like this side of Triple H, him grooming the talent at NXT, him giving the pep talks like, you're Ric Flair, you're the fucking Undertaker. Show these people who you are. Remind them who you are. You wouldn't think of that when it comes to Triple H.
But those are also legends who made men when he came into the business. So people can kind of take that. I'm just playing devil's advocate. They can kind of take that and look at that. Yeah, he's going to put those guys over. And now he's grooming the young talent down at NXT. But you look at him being cutthroat with people that were as tenured as him. And that's where people have an issue with Triple H. He respects the old timers and respects the business and understands the sacrifices that it took. But when he was a performer, he didn't give a fuck about nobody but himself. But like I said, I'm just playing devil's advocate. That's why I think that's where I think he gets the majority of his shit. But the second half of his career, yeah, he's been the man.
Definitely. I mean, I think back to the first Tough Enough competition where he went down and talked to the tradies. It was just like either you want it or you don't, and if you don't, get the fuck out.
Yeah. So back to Undertaker, he says that after that pep talk with Triple H, he went out there, he had his match, and that was enough to get him through. But then he starts talking about when he got into the Royal Rumble match, and it was heading into the Roman Reigns feud that was going to culminate in WrestleMania, and him just thinking in his head that he had no reason being in that ring. He realized that he shouldn't have been in that match, and he talks about how every time he's on that WrestleMania card, that means that there's a young talent that didn't get put on that card and get that payday. So he has to go out there and he has to put on a match that's not only worthy of the Undertaker, but worthy of WrestleMania, and just worthy to whoever his opponent is in the ring with him as well. And then we get to WrestleMania 33, and it's pretty much set up to be his retirement, but it didn't go as planned, or as hot, or as well. And one thing I noticed, they did the slow motion thing to make the match seem all dramatic and different things like that. There was a sign in the background that I was cracking up at. It said, "This match has been sponsored by the AARP." Undertaker was making his way down to the ring. I had a good chuckle. I was like, man,
They disrespect that man like that.
I was like, they didn't blur that out. Oh yeah, another thing I want to bring up, that Thin Blue Line shirt didn't age so well.
Oh Lord. You know what I found that was, you just made me think about something. So in the beginning, they were just like, basically there was a little blurb on the bottom, was like, this was recorded between 2017 and 2020. I'm like, wow, why would they, they have to mention that as kind of a given if they talk about WrestleMania. But then I saw who was in the documentary. I'm like, aha, that's why they had to say this is way back then. You had JR and you had Jericho, both on this documentary.
Yeah, but they
clear that up. These niggas ain't in the company. Oh, well, these ain't in the company right now.
I'm surprised they didn't edit that out, to be honest.
Yeah, I was shocked to see them have the whole Jericho segment in there and everything. But hey, I'm happy they did. I got a feeling that Triple H is in charge of like the media stuff now, and maybe not Vince McMahon.
But, I mean, because it's like, it's not a secret. Yeah, Jericho worked there. Yeah, JR worked there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Undertaker had a lot of say on this documentary as well, because we haven't, obviously this is the first episode, and but I've seen clips and other parts of episodes to come, and Undertaker is open and honest about a lot of different things that happened throughout his career that you wouldn't think WWE would want being out there. Hell, even in this one about the whole concussion and him being out there and in that situation, even though, they like, hey, we took care of him. We did what we needed to do as soon as we found out and were made aware that there was an issue.
I like what JBL said about the Undertaker. He was saying how Undertaker was the measuring stick. And if you remember, anytime, someone went up against the Undertaker, don't care who it was, if they had a bad match with Undertaker, JBL was like, that ain't Taker's fault. So if you had a bad match with Taker, you're not going to last. I mean, you can think about the people that have been one-hit wonders in the WWE. The Undertaker, like the feud with Chronic, was that the Invasion? Or after the match, Undertaker and Kane looked back in the ring like, oh my God, y'all the shits. He had a look of disgust on his face.
And the only match, and I would believe that Undertaker went to bat for Roman Reigns, because that was a terrible match. But like he said, he wasn't he shouldn't have been anywhere near a ring that night, pretty much.
If Undertaker was in the same shape he was when he took on, like, Shawn Michaels, or hell, even Triple H 10 years ago or whatever, him and Roman Reigns probably would have had an awesome match.
Yeah, they were pretty much
10 years ago, Roman Reigns wouldn't have won, but just saying.
Yeah, they weren't having a terrible match until they went for that reverse tombstone, and they went to the well too many times to try and fix it, and it just wasn't happening because Undertaker couldn't get his legs up. And then,
you know what? I don't know if I'm gonna completely blame the Undertaker on that, because Roman Reigns should have been a lot higher than that. Because when he did try to kip up that second time, like he was way too low. He wasn't going. He would have to pick up the entire body weight of the Undertaker. So, but then again, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe it was Undertaker's fault.
I have to go back and watch that match again.
Well,
because he went for it. They did the leaned back thing, and then that's when they lost control. Yeah, but it could have been maybe the timing.
Well,
because Undertaker's done that before, so.
Well, I also say that if I could tombstone you, Roman Reigns should have been able to tombstone the Undertaker.
You guys should see Mustafa's face.
He's remembering. He's like, damn, that did kind of hurt. I dropped him on that sack of dimes he calls a neck. But anyways, yeah, so I thought the match was shit, but I thought that the way that Undertaker laid down all of his things in the ring as a retirement was dope. And I think that moment overshadowed how bad the match was to me, especially because it took him like 20 minutes to take off all of his shit and leave it in the ring. So it kind of made you forget about the match and just get caught up in the moment of, damn, like, it's 25 years of the Undertaker.
I said so. The Undertaker, we've seen in 2 different matches, has the ability to make grown men cry, weep like babies, and also put them in pure shock. So I just want to say that that's how cold that man is. Because I'm not gonna lie, some ninjas broke into my house and started cutting onions when that happened, and he left all the stuff in the ring, was walking away. And then, of course, when he lost to Brock Lesnar, that's when we all sat at the television screen with our mouth dropped, like, wait a minute, that didn't happen.
Right.
Did that happen? Was that a mess up? Somebody's getting fired. Like, all these things going through my mind at that point.
I wish that they had addressed that in here. I wish they had told us that was the planned finish or not.
They said
It was.
it was the planned finish.
But
But
everybody knew about it.
yeah, up until the day of, it was kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
But going back for a second, when he counted, when they realized that the streak was something that was going on and that the streak took on like a life of its own, I remember because it was after that match against Triple H at WrestleMania 17 is when he counted the 10, and I was just like, holy shit, he hasn't lost at WrestleMania. It was at that moment when I realized it as well, as a fan, just watching it.
You know who has the streak right now at WrestleMania?
Fandango?
Hold
Nope.
on.
It's RVD.
No, there's someone else who's got a streak right now too at WrestleMania that you wouldn't think of. I can't think of it right now.
Well, it was Charlotte too, I believe. Oh no, she lost to Becky, but it was Charlotte. Charlotte had a streak going before she lost to Becky.
Before, well, that was a while back. So Edge was also on a streak before he lost to the Undertaker.
But RVD is right now. I think he's like 3 or 4-0. I don't think there's anybody else close to that. So obviously, because they would have lost. But one thing, and this is what we're going to close on. One thing that kept being brought up in here, and I'm sure it's going to continue to get talked about as the episodes go on. You heard Edge say it. You heard Stone Cold say it. You heard Jericho say it, and even the Undertaker himself kept saying it, is that wanting to go out on your own terms and knowing when to hang up the boots and not becoming a parody of yourself and hanging on too long, and also taking away those spots for those young guys like he mentioned to WrestleMania, and making sure that when you go out there, you're performing to the highest level no matter how you're feeling that day. Like Big Show talked about wrestling Undertaker, and he had 103-degree fever and stuff coming out both ends, and he going out there and performing and going backstage and getting hooked up to an IV, which in the age of COVID, you selfish son of a bitch. But I wanted to ask you guys, because this is a podcast where we don't mind throwing people under the bus. So this is going to be a throwing people under the bus segment. Has there been anybody in your career, or specifically within Wisconsin, who you felt has held on to their spot for too long and should have hung up the boots?
Not so much now, but when we first started, there was quite a number of people, and they eventually did hang it up. But it was like, why are you still here?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone current now that's worn out their welcome, I guess. No, but yeah, I mean, there are some people. in the Green Bay area that probably should have hung up the belt, hung up the boots a long time ago when we first started. And they're one of those, I'm going to hold on to my spot and, hold everyone down. So, yeah, fuck you.
They're
Like
retired
it's
now.
independent wrestler. It's like independent wrestling, bro. The $20 that you gonna make or not make shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Are they
They're
retired now?
retired now.
Oh, okay. Who was it then?
Oh,
I'm gonna let Chris
trying to
Black say
think.
it. He has no problem saying it.
What was his name? Adrian Lynch is one of them.
Okay.
I'm just gonna stop there.
That was the biggest one.
Yeah, that was the main one. Lynch. You heard me.
Maybe.
He said what he said.
Ain't gonna do nothing about it anyway. So
He gonna come out of retirement.
hey, well we can
Don't you?
do what do they call it, a replay of one of New Jack's matches. It's Gypsy Joe.
Well, yeah, that was supposed to be our throwing people under the bus segment, but obviously you guys don't have too many people to throw under the bus. So.
Because it's different now. The climate is a little different. There's probably some guys that there's always guys that are feeling themselves a little too much, but
Well, then I guess I'll ask this question, and we'll start with Xavier Mustafa because he's the one who's been playing with the ideal and mentioning it. How will you know when it's time for you to retire? Besides me laying you down for the 1, 2, 3.
Which will never happen. I think it's time for you to hang up the boots when you've realized, when you should realize that you've reached the ceiling in your wrestling career. Like, there was a point where I knew that I wasn't going to get a WWE contract or a WCW kind of, if they're around, a TNA contract or anything like that. And it's just because, people are haters and, I like to speak my mind most of the time. So that doesn't work for a lot of people. But it just got to a point where I was like, why am I still doing this? Because I'm not going to go to the next level. So I might as well just stay where I'm at and maximize where I'm at. So that's where, we're starting Legacy Pro at that point. That's when I started to transition out. But I was like, you know what? I still love this business, so I'm going to help the upcoming, wrestlers with their careers. Which I feel like when me and Chris Black were coming up, there weren't a lot of veterans that were doing that because, like, the same person that he just named was an asshole, and he was so protective of his wrestling spot, he didn't want to help anybody. Like, you're a veteran. You're supposed to take the young kids under your wing. And, it's not, I don't know, it's not the territory where I don't know.
I've never understood why you wouldn't want to groom the next generation. I don't get that. Because, the business isn't going to end with you. So you might as well help prepare the next generation.
Like, I worked with a guy in Tennessee. I'm probably going to say his name, but I'm going to wait to the end. This guy was such a fucking mark for himself. Like, he was such a mark for himself that nothing else mattered. As long as he could sell and get his big comeback and get his finish, he didn't care about anything other than that. That dude, terrible for the business because he didn't care about bringing nobody up with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'll give the guy some credit. He was over. People liked him. But why aren't you helping the next heel be the next big heel? Why aren't you teaching the new kids to be good baby face? I don't say good because I don't think he was good, to be honest. I think but, to teach them how to, sell and how to, work a match to, better position yourself as a baby face, stuff like that. But, the guy's a POS, so Boogie Woogie Boy Gary Valiant. He's an asshole.
Same question for you.
I think it's Gary. I think it's Gary. Gary Valiant. I don't know, but he's the Boogie Woogie Boy in Nashville, Tennessee. Old ass dude with a fucking shitty receding hairline that wears a scarf on his head to try to hide it. That fucker.
Same question for you, Chris Black.
Okay, so I've actually pondered this question um, more and more since I'm now about a year short of 40. So I've questioned how much do I have left in me? And I guess the answer that I can just keep telling myself is when I can no longer do what makes me me or what makes Chris Black unique, then I know it's time to hang up the boots. And the plan is to transition into a managerial role. If I can't be a working talent like in the ring, I'll still be a working talent, but in a different position. I can see myself as a manager. Like I said, I would love to be able to help groom the next group of people. I mean, there's some guys that like that are wrestling now that I was like, man, if I was a manager right now, these are the guys I'd want in my stable. So I
Yeah,
look forward to it, but then I don't because pro wrestling is like a drug. It is an addiction, and right now I can question. Well, do I have 5 years left? Do I have 3 years left? Do I have 10 years left? And until I just don't have the desire to get back in the ring, I can't see myself walking away. But I refuse mm, to take a giant shit in the ring and trying to hold on to my past glory or whatever. So if it gets to the point where, like I said, I can no longer do what makes me me, then it's time to hang up the boots.
yeah, and I do remember. Oh, I'm gonna bring up a sidebar. I don't know if you said it on the show, but I remember when we started this podcast, how you said this kind of reignited your passion for the business, and especially when you said you got assigned or took on the responsibilities, I should say, of watching New Japan Pro Wrestling, and you're like, man, this is really getting me fired up to wrestle more and watch this and not just be exposed to the American art form. And I think that's the people you continue to see out here, like the Rock and Roll Express and everything like that. I think that you see those people doing what they do, and say what you want to say about the Rock and Roll Express, but still performing at a high level for their age because they're not shoehorning themselves into one style or one territory or one company or whatever, and they're continuing to travel around and see all the different things that people are working on and discovering the ways that other people are working and doing things and finding ways to integrate themselves into that style or social circle or whatever it may be, and that helps to keep you young as well, or at least out there and performing. And I also think, getting back to the Undertaker, I think that that's kind of what still kind of drives Undertaker as well, is getting in there with these young guys and mixing it up. Even if he's not the most confident in himself, I think he, in the back of his mind, kind of feels that it's giving him an opportunity to try and adapt what he does with them and giving them a different look. I don't know.
Oh, definitely. I mean, definitely you can see how he kind of adjusts his style to the talent that he's working with. He's not going to have the same match with the Roman Reigns that he has with an AJ Styles and, so on and so forth, or Brock Lesnar or John Cena. He kind of adapts to his opponent.
One thing I was going to say earlier is that another thing you got to think about too is that your body starts to break down, just like the Undertaker was saying. And AJ Styles and all those guys that are being, not AJ Styles, but a lot of guys that are being interviewed was saying that your body starts to break down at a point. And I remember seeing Jimmy Snuka in the locker room. That dude, I mean, he was taking baby steps. I don't know why I said that like it was German or something. He was taking baby steps and was moving so slow, and you could just tell that he hurt. And, just talking about the way the Undertaker was looking when he was walking around when you saw him back there 10 years ago, and I look at that and I'll be like, do I really want to stay in the business or actually be active in the ring till I become that? Now, granted, I don't have any kids or anything, but Chris Black has kids. You know what I'm saying? His youngest probably gonna give him grandkids in a couple of years. You know, he won't run around and stuff with the kids and grandkids and stuff like that. He don't want to be like, yeah, I will play with you, but you know, I can't move right now because I decided to wrestle, you know, a hardcore match with thumbtacks and light tubes, and I'm stupid.
Yeah, that was one of the funny parts of the documentary was him running into Roman Reigns and his wife and talking about how Michelle saw the twins and how she's got a little bit of baby fever, and he's like, well, he's like, I'm all for the practicing, but he's like, this is when it's time for the actual show. He's like it don't work so well no more.
Yeah, it was nice seeing some moments like that when the Undertaker, like when Roman Reigns walked up to him at the counter, he's like, God damn, you can't even maintain kayfabe for 10 minutes, you know. And Roman Reigns like, screw your camera guy. Again, I don't want to get off topic, but let Roman Reigns just be him.
Yeah,
Anyway, this isn't a Roman Reigns podcast.
Yeah, as I'm seeing more in Roman Reigns outside of WWE, he is a likable person. They need to stop trying to make him be this stoic character in the ring.
Outside of WWE, he's the guy they want him to be. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but like you said, this isn't a Roman Reigns podcast. This is about the Undertaker. We haven't really gotten off topic. We've been sticking with the theme of this is pretty much it's called the Undertaker: The Last Ride, and it's kind of when is it time to hang up the boots. And so it's gonna be interesting to see what else they explore in the next 4 episodes. You guys got any other comment on episode 1?
No, but I can't wait to get into some of the other episodes because I've heard of the topics that he brings up, and there's one in particular that I can't wait to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I know which one that is.
I'm gonna say that it's great and refreshing to see that you have a guy who has been so successful in his career, and the major thing he cares about is making sure at the end of the day the business is okay. And so, to me, not that he didn't have my respect at the beginning, but that gave me all the respect in the world for that man. Because I remember a great man told me, who was a promoter in Tennessee, told me that you always want to leave things better than you found it. And if you're not in the wrestling business to leave it better than you found it, you need to get the fuck out of it.
See, whenever somebody starts their sentence with "a great man once told me," I'm always expecting for them to name me, and then they go off into some other bullshit. But that's all right. I'm the greatest.
Now, if I would have said a terrible man told me or a disillusioned man told me, then that'll be you.
But yeah, I honestly, full transparency, when we first said we're going to do these reviews, I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this because what hasn't been said about The Undertaker, but this is definitely a different side of him, and I'm enjoying it so far. We're only 1 episode in.
Yeah, when you say that, it's like what hasn't been said about The Undertaker, but this is The Undertaker saying it about himself, and that's what sets this apart. So, especially just as a documentary, you think about all the WWE documentaries, you usually do it after somebody's dead or gone from the company. Undertaker's still there. So, other than that, you guys want to give out your social medias?
You can catch me at Xavier Mustafa on Facebook and Twitter. You also can find my other podcast, my solo podcast, XM Cinema. Go ahead and give a search for that and subscribe to that as well. And you can catch me on the social media for that one on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at XM Cinema.
You can catch me at The Natural Chris Black on Facebook and Instagram, and at _natural_CB on Twitter.
Yeah, Xavier Mustafa, I'm looking forward to your film reviews this month of Bullworth and Head of State. So those should be interesting. Go check them out over there. Other than that, you can catch us wherever you get your podcast from. So that could be Stitcher or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Just search Saturday Night Slamcasters. Like I said, that's completely different content than what you get over here. And you can catch me at Tru Element. Oh, no, it's not Tru Element. Slamcaster TE78 over there on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook. It's Saturday Night Slamcasters. And other than that, we'll be back in 2 weeks to hit you guys with the second episode of the Undertaker, The Last Ride documentary. Other than that, holla at your boys. We up out of here. Peace. Come get slammed.